Hello there, my fellow farmers. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, Episode 3, Growing Ground Grains for Growth. Another thing that would be good to make early on would be like food markets. So, in terms of services for your citizens, you have religion. Speaking of which, do we have... Wow, we still don't have anyone that doesn't believe in craterism. Alright. It will happen at some point, but I don't have to have a second shrine. We have food stalls and markets. So food stalls distribute food, and markets distribute goods. My people are asking for markets, but I don't really have any goods to distribute. Like, I'm not making clothing yet, so I'm not even going to bother with that. They can ask for it, but, like, it's not that necessary, in my opinion. Not right now. I'd rather get the grain farm going and a bakery off of the grain farm. Yeah, I think the new migrants probably came in with clothing. Often, your migrants will also show up starving. So when you admit immigrants, you might have, like, starving notifications, but those starving notifications are just a result of the new immigrants not showing up with full stomachs. It's not your fault. There was nothing you could do about it. You can functionally ignore it because it will go away pretty quickly. So this warehouse is going to be General Warehouse 2. Nothing like an autosave in the middle of me typing out the name to screw everything up. And then I'm going to hit these minus arrows to reset the storage in here and then change it. I'm going to do 5 units of wood, 2 of stone, 1 of furniture. And that is all I'm going to put in... Oh, and then 1 of bread. And that's all I'm going to put in here for now. I'm going to reduce the delivery man to 1 and increase the radius up to whatever the original radius was, 31. So these are massively inefficient warehouses for now. We'll be refining them later on. But this is just so that we can store the stone and the wood that we have in clear cutting for the fields somewhere where it won't get destroyed so quickly. I don't need spoil rate. I'm actually really surprised that wood spoils at even 15% per year. Given how in like real world you would have wood age for a while. Like you don't even burn young wood, you know? You want like aged wood, whatever. Doesn't matter. And then we're also putting the stone away, and stone, believe it or not, also spoils, but like not high enough that it really matters, at like 1% per year. So as long as you're not like spending your entire odd jobs workforce to clear all the stone on the map, stone spoilage is like not a big deal to consider. Alright, grain farm. It's about 70% cleared. It's -3 out. And I'm assuming this is like in Celsius. I don't think the game ever specifies what unit of temperature it is. It's just temperature. But it seems reasonable that it's Celsius. Alright, this is going to be the grain silo. I don't need a large radius on this. I'm just going to give it a radius of like, let's say 10. And it's just going to have grain in it. And for now, I don't even want anyone working in it because it's not serving a purpose yet. It will serve a purpose once I have my first grain harvest. And it's probably not going to be my only one, so I'm going to make it grain silo 1. And the idea here is that the farms will then drop their grain off in the grain silo, and then the grain silo can eventually be hooked up to deliver its grain to a bakery. And we're almost in springtime. There was a lot of trees to clear. Okay, now that it is all cleared, we then deliver 28 grain to seed it. To essentially build it as a grain farm. And if you ever want to change the farm type, you can always reseed a fully grown farm to change its crop. So if you're like, oh man, I have a lot of grain, but I really need cotton, you can just change your grain farms to cotton. With that said, because there's like a grain silo here, it's not necessarily going to be efficient because you don't have like local storage or anything like that. But it is possible to change the type, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So here, if you hit reseed, you can change to another crop. There's also priority. So you can increase or decrease the priority in which this workplace is compared to other workplaces. So if you're having a problem with a lack of people working in your colony, you can always and you're running out of food, you can always prioritize your like farms and bakeries over other industries, and it will preferentially put people in those farms and bakeries. You have fertility, moisture, skill. So as the farmers farm, they will just physically get better at farming, and the yields will be higher because they get better at it. And then here you also have tools. Now I don't have any tools, but tools will boost your everything. Every industry basically can use tools except for like laboratories, I guess. And once you have a smithy running, tools are a really good way to boost things that you want boosted without having to increase the labor or increase the material cost. So here we go. First grain farm. And then the current priority now is going to be build a bakery. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure not to starve before I really start like big housing projects and things like that. But we have to think about like where things are going to be laid out. So ignoring the starter longhouses because they're going to move, and ignoring the hearth, the well, and the shrine because again they're going to move. I don't want to build any of the houses on fertile zoning. So as you can see, the grain farm is at the edge of the fertile zoning. This is the fertility zone. So I'm going to want like houses maybe around here. There is the concept of noise. So right now, nothing that I have in the farm or have in the city makes noise. But eventually, things like woodcutters or bakeries or smithies or combat training or anything like that will generate noise, and people don't want to live around the noise. So keeping your residences and your industries kind of like a little separate is good. People don't want to, have to listen to that jazz when they're sleeping and the like. So when I'm planning a bakery, I think I am going to put my bakery up. I'm going to start putting like industries up here. Although if I want to roleplay into an agrarian society, I might want a bakery closer where people live. So I'm trying to think of how to go about this. Maybe what I'll do is build a bakery somewhat close to my grain farm. So at the start of the game, before I even do a bakery, I'm going to need carpentry. So at the start of the game, you only have access to a few different industries. So you have a tailor for clothing, you have a carpenter for furniture, and then you have a bakery for baking. You also have your like mines for clay, coal, ore, and stone. Cannibal if you want to eat people, but I don't. People don't want to be eaten like that. And a woodcutter if you want to set up automated woodcutting. Woodcutting is kind of like forestry in the game where you set up a zone and then they manage that zone. So it's like automated wood cutting, which I don't think you need really early on. My 2 cents. So maybe what I'll do is design this so that my bakery works down here. Yeah, I think what I want to do is I want to design a city that feels more organic, in other words. Because I think that will be fun. So let's build a bakery in this spot just north of the grain farm. And I'll build a 7x9. So in your bakery, your primary production is the oven. And the bigger the oven, the more your production. And then you have, most buildings will have some sort of auxiliary function. So in this case, it's an auxiliary oven, which increases the efficiency of the facility. And then you have local storage. Local storage is how much of the bread that they can store locally before it has to get shipped out to a warehouse. So having too much local storage doesn't make a whole ton of sense, because then most of your structure is going to be full of local storage. But having at least a little bit of local storage is pretty handy for efficiency, because if your local storage fills up, your bakery stops. So if the bakery runs out of grain, runs out of fuel, or runs out of local storage, production halts. This is a rather large bakery. I'm building it to employ up to 10. That doesn't mean it needs to hire 10. I'm going to limit that. And this is where we're going to build it. Right next to the grain farms. So I'll construct a road off of this hearth. And then the other thing I might want to do is let's see. Trying to think of the right way to go about this. Open up a path so that this bakery... Actually, let's refurbish this already. A southern door. And this is so that the bakery can have access to the grain storage as well. Keeping everything clustered in production chains will help with greatly help with the efficiency of said industry. And let's make this structure roundish. In the same way that we did the last one. This, like, Star Fort style. Okay. And if you zoom out, this is like an industries map. So, like, blue is your warehouses, and brown is your houses, and your workplaces and services are yellow, and shrines are pink, and your throne is this magenta. So it helps you sort of visualize from a distance. And if you zoom out even further, we'll have icons for those specific functions. I don't have happiness quite high enough in order to encourage immigrants. One of the really easy things I could do is to have markets and latrines and a speaker. I don't really want to make a speaker until I have the concept of like where the city or where the heart of everything is going to be. But I think what I'll do, maybe I'll poll you guys. Should I lay out my city as more of a grid or organically? So, there's the poll. Bump ahead. I'll give you 2.5 minutes. So one of the advantages of a grid is if I design like a city block, I can copy and paste it very, very easily to scale up population. But that isn't to say that people will live where they work and work where they live. If I do it organically, it will feel more like a city, but it will take me longer to design it and architect it, and it won't scale up well. Given that this is a marathon of finite time, I don't really need to worry too much about scale. You know, I'll probably get up to maybe 1,000 population or so in this marathon, unless I really push it, which I don't think I will. But yeah, I'm happy to go with either design idea. They both work for me. So we almost have all the land cleared for the bakery. And I changed the grain silo so that we have access here as well, which will make it easier to move grain into the bakery. And this year we're only going to get 11 grain off of the grain farm. It's also worth mentioning, I do not want large projects before forage time. I am still very heavily reliant upon foraging for survival, so my odd jobbers need to be free heading into late summer. And this will be true until I am no longer forage reliant. So once this is built, I want to limit its workforce because I don't want 10 people working in here. So I'm going to reduce it down to 2. I think that's pretty reasonable. So we have 2 people working. There is an accident rate. There is research projects, which is akin to OSHA, if you're wondering, which will make work safer. Where is that again? Here, I think? Yeah, work safety. Which reduces the accident rate. So there's a chance to have accidents when working in the bakery where it will injure or kill people. And that's like true of a lot of places. Especially mines or combat training, they run pretty high accident rates. Alright, looks like organically is going to be the way to go. Got it. So that means I'm going to want houses pretty close to the bakery and the grain farm for the bakers and grain farms for them to live. It's also important to note that that's simply... Alright, I'm just going to propose an idea. Let's say I set up a clay pit over here. Anyone that works in this clay pit is going to be homeless, even if I have open homes. Because right now I have 3 open spots for people to live, because the commute time between this clay pit, if I had a clay pit here, and the houses that I have are simply too far. So the people working here will be homeless as a result. So people will only live roughly where they work anyway, but in an organic design style, I'm going to set it up in such a way that like people live very close to where they work and they have their services very close to where they live. So that means this spot here, I'm also going to include a speaker. So a speaker is kind of like a town crier where they stand on like a soapbox sharing the news of the town, which is good for entertainment, simple entertainment. And then we'll also add a market and food stall around this area. So I'm going to have the people that work in agriculture live around here. So let's do a food stall. And I want to design a food stall like just big enough for like 1 employee to manage. So we'll nest it in there like that. And this market, this market requires furniture, so I'm not going to be able to build it until I have a carpenter. And then we'll do the same thing for the food stall. Same form factor and all, because they're laid out more or less the same way. And I have it like 0.9, so just big enough that it employs 1 person. I don't need it bigger. All right. Which means that all the people working in this farm, so I have 2 grain farmers and 2 bakers, I'm going to want houses around here. So this is going to be my first, like, population center. Because all this was more or less temporary. I also like to leave space for decorations. So I think what I'm going to do is place my first harmony object because it fits quite nicely right here. And this is going to be just a large tree, and I'll put a road around it. And then there's some symmetry. There's some symmetry involved in this. And I hope to get this built before forage season, because I want my foragers to go foraging, because I only have about a year's worth of food. So another thing that we're going to want with the bakery is we need somewhere to put the bread. We need a local warehouse for bread storage, because these bakers are baking bread. The bread is being stored in the local storage here. Actually, I don't think I have any bread yet, but it would be. And then I don't think, a valid... so the general warehouse up here actually does have bread storage, but it's rather far away. So we're going to want, like, some sort of bread storage in and around this area as well. And I could probably put it over here. So what I'll do is I will copy this building and paste it right there, and then delete some of the roads that probably don't need to exist. And also I want to make sure that I'm not... Yeah, it's sort of more fertile there, so maybe I won't put it there, because this could be better suited as farmland. So I'll put it up here, where it's a little bit more barren. And you can just see where the grass is. It's pretty good indicator of fertility. So I'll put this here instead, because that way I can have a little bit of grain farm in here, in the void. This is probably large. Actually, I'm going to do this differently. Because it's like too big of a storage spot for just like bread alone. Because bread is not something you're going to need like bajillions of. So I'm going to build it as a satellite structure off of the structure itself, like this. So it's a separate building, but like not far away. All right, and hopefully they finish up these projects before late summer. The grain farm is only going to yield about 23 this year. Definitely want to add some more grain farms. One probably come winter, which would be a good time to do the plowing. But there is the tree. Now, I wonder if it's... Okay, it's time to build my first janitor as well. So, degradation is sort of like the maintenance of buildings. And as things degrade, they become less efficient. So like a degraded bakery will produce less bread than a well-kept bakery. So I'm in my maintenance overlay right now, and as you can see, there's some maintenance issues in and around the city. So what I'm going to do is build a janitor. It's a bit of a misnomer. I don't think of janitors as people that do the maintenance, but that's just how it is in this game. And right here seems to be a good place for my first janitor station. You know, it will somewhat mimic the warehouse across the street. So for that, you just need a workstation and then some extra utilities. I'm not even really sure what the utilities are. Put a door and call it good. There's our first janitor. Yeah, the janitors in this game are like maintenance men. Or, I don't mean to have it gendered, but maintenance people. Rather than truly janitors that do the cleanup. So if you're new to the game and you're like, janitors? I don't need janitors. Well, you do. Everybody does. Without janitors, your entire world collapses. Alright, we are heading towards Light Spring. I hope I didn't queue up too much work for them to do. There's also recipes for the bakery. So the bakery can also use coal instead of wood. So if you have a coal mine that's producing an excess of coal and you're not using it all for smelting and other purposes like pottery, you can set the bakery up to burn coal instead. It's also not a terrible idea to have wood storage somewhat close to the bakery, but I don't think it's like not crucial necessarily, but maybe like 2 of the 10 crates in the grain storage will be for, or actually, you know what? I'll do it in the inverse. Grain silo is going to be grain silo, but the bakery warehouse will also include wood and bread. I think that makes more sense. Yeah, there is the word custodian. True. Be a custodian. Oh, immigrants. I have room for 2 more people. And I haven't even built the houses yet. So, come wintertime, we'll want some of the initial houses to take advantage of the food stall, the market, the janitor, or, you know, all of the stuff in the courtyard here. And then also to do the foraging. Let's look at Desire Path. Yep, pretty much everywhere anyone walks, except for right here, is Desire Path, which means the pathing is good. I'm just hiring on as many odd jobbers as I can for the foraging that's about to happen. So there's the food stall. And the food stall will hire a food vendor. And the food vendor will stock the food stall with food in order to have people have access to food for their houses. So houses around here will be able to pull from the food vendor for the food that they need. So they don't have to go to like a warehouse. So unless you want to keep like a general warehouse in your city center with like access to all the food that people are going to want, which is, you know, certainly a way to play, the food stall is a better way. Now, it's important to note the food stored in the food stall doesn't count for whatever reason against the total food for your survivability. So if you have a lot of food in your food stall, it's not going to actually show up here, which is a little weird. Just the way it is. So just keep that in mind. Like, right now, here's a really good example. There's 4 bread in this food stall. The game says I have 0 bread. It's not true. I have 4 bread. Just happens to be in a food stall. Alright, it looks like all the current projects are going to wrap up before summer, which is great. So here's the janitor. He's going to get hired. And then they'll start repairing all of the stuff. And they also have a sphere of influence, but because I have just a small little village, one janitor will be able to maintain everything. Now, on this map tile, there is a dirt road, which is unmaintained. At some point, when I have excess odd jobbers and nothing for them to do, I'll probably break down that road because I don't really want a random road that leads to nowhere in the middle of my map tile. I don't need it. I don't need to maintain it, so I'm going to get rid of it. But here's the janitor maintaining things. So he'll move around and fix up parts of the road, parts of the building, whatever they find is wrong. General maintenance. And I have automated it to let the AI adjust how many janitors are needed. This janitor station that I have can hire up to 5. 5 would be absolutely overkill for my current population. Alright, we're going to get about 40 grain off of this year. That's nice. And this is going to be the bakery warehouse. The bakery warehouse is going to stock a little bit of wood and bread and grain. Now, I know there's a grain silo here. I just have a lot of storage for grain, but that's fine. I plan on storing a heck of a lot of grain. And we'll call this bakery warehouse 1. Alright, odd jobbers. Do you have nothing to do? Let's go ahead and clear all... Or, you know, I am going to remove water here. Because I am planning on making another grain farm. And we need to, landfill. And then as soon as it's, forage time, I'm just going to cancel. Oh, extreme temperatures is getting really hot. As soon as, things are forageable, I'll just cancel whatever remains of these jobs and send all the odd jobbers out to do the odd jobs. Gotta make them work, right? So the next priority is build homes around the farms and bakery. And it's going to be a minute to get there, just because I don't want to saddle them with extra tasks heading into the forage season, because we're still very heavily reliant upon foraging. The grain farm that we have alone is not enough to support the population that we have, so I'm going to need a lot more farming before I stop foraging. And even then, you know, it's not necessarily a good idea to not forage, because it's, you know, free food that grows without effort. So it's the first day of summer of year 2. So this is a 1 year in village. It's not bad. I'm going to have them clear a little bit of the field. I don't want to queue too much of it, though. I'm ready to delete a lot of the extra tasks when need be. Because I think we're definitely going to be in a situation where we have too many queued up things for them to manage to do foraging. Because foraging is just not an odd jobber's, like, primary task. I'm not sure how, and it's just likely due to my experience, to prioritize foraging over other tasks for odd jobbers, so I usually just rely on them not having other tasks to do. There might be a way to do it, but it's not something I know how, to put it simply. And then I'll also... Oh, we're getting our second janitor. I'll also be ready to ramp up the... I'm going to remove the delivery men for these warehouses for now, just so that they're working as odd jobbers. And then once we have things to gather up, I'll transition that back. It's also, if you open up the workload overlay, Workload is like how much work people do, typically. It's a really good way to track. So, for instance, the second janitor that we hired, they're not fully working. They're doing a workload of like 63%. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to have that second janitor hired until all these maintenance projects go away, because we just have a 1-year backlog of maintenance projects. But once those maintenance projects go away, if the AI doesn't dictate that we only need one janitor, I'll probably do it myself. Because you don't necessarily need to... The game is like okay at hiring out for workload, but like not amazing at it. Often they will allocate more people than what it is worth, especially in farming, I find. I don't know if you guys find the same, but usually when I'm setting up farms, it hires like almost twice as many people for that farm as what I think is needed for the farm. One way to set a priority for foraging is place a workstation near it. True, yeah. I mean, it would require you to build a workstation, but I can show you that. So workstation is like a general odd jobber's workplace, where you can place down like, hey, this is probably not how to paint it, but this is a workstation, so go do work in this radius, and then increase the priority of that. That's workstation's really good if you have like large projects that are far flung. So if you're trying to build like a new mine up here, and your odd jobbers are just constantly busying themselves with things close to the base, you can stick a workstation up, you know, near the mine and be like, hey, do work around here. And as long as that, and also maybe haul out the materials with a hauler out to the mine. So if the mine requires like a lot of stone or a lot of wood or a lot of furniture, have a hauler haul that stuff out so that it's readily available in the area. Because haulers are able to haul more than like an odd jobber when they have a dedicated task. Just an idea. So they are clearing some of the trees here, and then pretty soon it's going to be forge time. So after we forge, as you can see, I'm going to be building the houses around the farm, and then I'll probably want to get some carpentry going. You know, our first real industry. It's sad that the odd jobbers feel like they don't have tasks to do. They also want lavatories and bathhouses. I don't have technology for bathhouses, but I do have technologies for lavatories. So I can put a lavatory probably here, where next to the janitor, and that will be another good project to prioritize once the forge time is complete. Still not right. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, which originally streamed live on Twitch as a marathon November 23rd. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below, but please keep in mind I'm not looking for feedback. This episode was cut from a marathon, and the marathon was streamed one time only, so feedback cannot be incorporated. If you would like to join a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams, and if you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. A link to my Patreon page can be found there as well, if that interests you. Thank you so very much for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel, and made it all the way to the credits, thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream of another game. Farewell, my fellow Cretonians.